Okay, it is 7:04 p.m. on Monday, November 15th, and I am going to call to order this meeting of the trustees of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust. The meeting is being recorded. Anybody else is free to record it after first notifying the chair. And we'll proceed according to the posted agenda. Announcements and public comment. Anyone?
I have a couple, Harry.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say that the Housing Authority, for years has had a website that Jeff Tash has set up and kept up as a volunteer, which we've been very grateful for. But it no longer works on all the platforms that you want your website to work on. And so Jeff has agreed that we need to look elsewhere. So the Housing Authority has sort of taken on the task of working up a new website that would be really representative of all three groups. And we have been very fortunate to have Barbara Woodbury, a wonderful web designer, agree to take this on as a donation to do a new website. So Gary and I that have been meeting with the CDP weekly with them as our housing consultants are working on it. And once we have a draft, I think that you all would want to look at, we'll bring it to you. But we feel very fortunate to have Barbara willing to take this on for us. And then the other thing that I think most of you know is that at the meeting of the 95 Lawrence Road Task Force last Monday, we voted 7-1 to recommend to the select board that they accept the proposal from POA CDP. And we will be presenting that to them at the November 23rd select board meeting.
Exciting.
Yay.
It is indeed.
Okay, anybody else? Nope. Okay, I had a couple of things. I was going to do them under the second agenda item, which is housing related activities, but I think you've all seen a copy of the
That under the second one.
of the Attorney General's opinion on the various town meeting actions Wellfleet took last June. With respect to the Affordable Housing Trust, they have approved the bylaw, so it's effective. There are apparently a couple of minor issues that need to either be reviewed or cleaned up, and we can deal with that in due course, depending on when town meeting is going to take place. With respect to the ADU bylaw, they flagged some notice deficiencies, and basically it used to be that with notice deficiencies like that, the town meeting action was void and had to be done over again. A little while ago, they amended the general laws to provide a way to cure defects that nobody felt were prejudicial to them. So basically what happens is the town has to renotice the bylaw with published and posted notice. And if nobody objects that they've been prejudiced, then the bylaw will go into effect. If somebody objects and says, well, this lack of notice has prejudiced me in my ability to respond to the proposal, I'm not quite sure what happens then, but it might require a do-over. Confusing that is the fact that in general, if you don't specify an effective date for a zoning bylaw, it's effective as of the town meeting vote. So zoning bylaws are always in this sort of limbo during that period after the town meeting vote up until the Attorney General approves it. You always have the risk that if you operate under the bylaw and the Attorney General says it's defective, I don't know what the status of your permit is if you got it in reliance on a bylaw that's now not a bylaw anymore. But, so I've always counseled the safer course of action is to wait until the Attorney General has approved the bylaw before you go pull permits based on it. But hopefully, I haven't asked the town clerk whether that notice has been published and posted yet, but hopefully if it has, sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks, that clock will run out and, the bylaw will be in force. So we just don't know.
Excuse me a second.
Sure.
Sharon,
Yeah,
Sharon, should you
Yes.
just notify Olga?
well, I would imagine she knows, but yeah, that's a good idea. I will certainly reach out to her and make sure that she knows.
She applied for and was approved for an ADU.
And as you know, I'm also like working on creating an ADU. So, but I've always been of the opinion that if it doesn't fly, we will just not put the stove in until it until it passes. But we could still rent it out as a year-round residence, because that's, I guess, I don't know, maybe we can't because we won't have a certificate of occupancy. But it could be an office of a professional man.
The only other thing I had was to note that the CPC is meeting on Wednesday morning at 9. Is that right, Gary?
Yes, so I'll just build on that and say, we did get notice today from the state because they have some redistribution of COVID-related money that Wellfleet is going to get upwards of $350,000 additional CPA funds.
Nice.
Can use for housing in addition to if we ever send out a tax bill and collect some tax income of approximately 570,000. So, we have in excess or approaching 900,000 plus of CPA funds for FY22 that we'll have at some point. And on Wednesday, we have the state coordinator for the CPA program. His name is Stuart Saganor, and he is speaking to us about bonding CPA. So if you have an interest in that, please join us on the Zoom meeting 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning.
And I will be there to speak to the trust's request, although I do have to leave at 10 to take my wife to an eye doctor appointment. She'll be getting drops in her eyes and won't be able to drive herself.
Harry, I will tell you that it's likely that we will have public hearings on those requests.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tentative date of December, I think it's the 8th. Wednesday, the 8th at 9 o'clock. So if you can't make it tomorrow, or you have to leave before we get to it, it's likely that will be the date
Okay.
for the public hearing.
Any other housing related status reports? The third agenda item, I invited Shelley Goring, and she had said she would be approximately 8 o'clock before she could join us. So we'll skip that one and come back to it. So Sharon had asked for an agenda item to discuss fundraising for the trust. So that's where we're at.
So should I speak?
Please.
So I had met with Susan Spear and Gary, as sort of as local housing partnership kind of working group. And, you know, we're very interested in looking at other ways of raising money for the trust. And the question, so we have someone who is a development person at Mayo Clinic who is a big supporter and has recently purchased a second home in Wellfleet, and, you know, would really like to be involved. And she, and apparently, you know, is probably a pretty high-powered development person. But in our discussion, then we sort of thought, are there any restrictions to a town committee raising money? I mean, is it legal?
I think the answer to that specifically with respect to the housing trust is there is no restriction. The statute, I think, specifically authorizes us to accept contributions.
Okay, so if we ask this woman to help us and we solicit donations from, for example, you know, wealthy people, and there's a number of different ways to do it. And I know there's some models on Nantucket and stuff like that for doing so. So that would not be precluded for any reason.
I don't believe so.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
It
We just
seems
wanted to be
like
clear.
it's part of our mission, isn't it?
Well, I
Oh.
think so. Just wanted to make sure, since we're not a nonprofit organization, we're
Yeah.
a committee. That was my concern.
Elaine, you're muted.
At the meeting a week or two ago that Laura Schufelt did about community housing and funding, it did come up, and she said, yes, you can raise money, but you have to report who you've asked, who you've solicited.
Oh,
I don't know how you do that, but basically said you can do it. You just have to report who you've solicited. And Gary, I think Gary, you asked, so if we solicit the whole town, you just say the whole town, and she said yes.
oh,
The whole
okay.
world, as it may be.
We can do that.
We have no, do we have any obligation to report to whom? Anybody?
I don't know who you report to.
I was going to say, what? We're not reporting from an IRS perspective.
No, I don't believe so.
No. Even if you just had to keep like, say you had a fundraiser and you just had a list of who attended, that would be
Sufficient.
if somebody asked, I guess. I don't know.
And then I guess the other question is, you know, say we get someone who's a big donor or wants to be a big donor, and that money is earmarked for the trust. Is it still going to be held up in all of the town accounting processes?
Well, you know, in the normal, normally that really wouldn't be an issue. It's the particular, it's the specifics of where we are right now in Wellfleet. It doesn't normally operate that way.
Well, I get that, but, it'd be a shame for someone to say, I'm donating, 50,000, 200,000, whatever, and it goes into the town's general coffers, and we know it's earmarked for us, but it doesn't look like
Mhm.
we're having benefit from it.
Can I ask a question maybe of Mike? Any update, Mike, on either the status of the tax bill and or CPA funding or the trust accounting and any date for a special town meeting?
Well, we did have an update from Charlie on our last meeting that
Yeah,
he didn't believe that a special town meeting was absolutely necessary
oh, good.
right now, but it may warrant, we may have issues that warrant a special town meeting, but the Department of Revenue has been working with them to repair some of the budget issues from our from this fiscal year that we just appropriated. And part of that was increasing the estimated local receipts, which the Department of Revenue allowed the town to do with marijuana receipts and some other local receipts estimates. And that has made it so they'll probably be able to send out the tax bill. I can't remember the date, but the end of this month, I think. So it's looking like, it's a little late, but it's going to happen pretty soon. And that if things go well with the DOR, we may not have to have a special town meeting to reconcile the budget issues.
Yeah,
So-
and related to that, Charlie was talking in terms of, it sounded like the marijuana tax receipts, the short-term rental tax receipts, basically every nickel they could scrape together in estimated receipts was going to have to be used to cover the currently approved operating budget and capital budget. So it didn't sound like there was going to be any look back to this spring or last year's short-term rental tax. It looks like that's all has to be absorbed to fund the budget.
But that said, we don't have, that's not including certifying free cash. So
Right.
there may be free cash that will probably have to be used in large part to repay stabilization fund, but we don't know how much is there. Can't certify the free cash until the fiscal year is closed. So they're working on it, but
And he was talking in terms of January for that, as I recall.
I think so, yeah, January. He's hoping to have everything done and free cash certified by January. Then the town will know, then the town will have will know what its free cash position is. It's total cash reserves.
Yeah,
So then I think, well, sooner than that, we should know that the trust is funded with whatever monies were supposed to be transferred into that. And I think that that's high on their priorities right now is reconciling all of the monies that are supposed to go into the Affordable Housing Trust. But I'm not sure what's in there right now because also there may be funds available right now because there was some funds received through, was it the CARES Act that they just got funded through that we as a select board voted to designate to the Affordable Housing Trust. And I don't know if that's been received and put into the trust, but that should be there, I think. And I just don't know what else is in there. And I can probably get a hold of Charlie and see if we can get a number of what's in the trust right now.
Maybe Mike, if you're looking at a January reconciliation date, we could put that on the agenda for our meeting and a meeting in January to really
Well,
come to.
I
Come to
think
some-
we'll probably know about the trust account before that.
Oh, all
I
right.
think that's for the towns to close out the fiscal year for the town. Then the town will know how much free cash it has to allocate to the following year's budget. So even though everything's being swallowed up, we didn't allocate any free cash in our last budget to the operating budget because it wasn't certified. So we didn't have access to that. So we used the stabilization fund and all these other local receipts, estimated local receipts, which you're supposed to have actuals for. Not to get too far into the weeds, but we didn't use any free cash, which we typically would use. So we had to rely on all these other sources. So once the books are reconciled, fiscal year is closed, and then we'll have an total accounting of what our free cash is that's certified and can be used in the next budget, right? So how we use that and how much it is, I don't know yet. If
Thank
that
you.
makes sense.
Okay, can we circle back to fundraising in particular?
Okay.
Is there more to discuss?
Hey,
Meg?
one thing, Elaine sent out the website for island housing about voices. Did you send that to the trust, Elaine?
Mhm.
Anyway, if not, I will send. There is a terrific donation page about how to give money to the various causes that they have that are housing related. So I'll send that out, and I'd ask that folks to look at that, and then we can talk about that in the context of our web redesign and how we handle donations, and whether that format meets what you perceive as the needs of the trust.
I also note that the Chamber of Commerce newsletter listed a whole list of Wellfleet-centric agencies that you could donate to, and through someone's efforts, perhaps the Housing Trust was listed among them.
Good.
And we also have the next August fundraiser as well.
So we don't need any additional permission, I guess.
I do not believe so. I was trying to find the statute, but I got distracted. But I'm pretty sure that we have specific authorization to accept donations. And the reason why it's important is the general rule for accepting donations is you need the select board's blessing.
Mhm.
But I don't believe we do.
No, I don't think that this trust needs any blessing. It got it from the town
Yep.
meeting vote.
Okay, good.
I will check, and if I learn anything different, I will let you know, Sharon.
Thank you. We were going to reach out to this generous woman, in the next 2 or 3 weeks. So that'd be great. Unless you think we should wait.
I'll tell you by tomorrow.
Okay.
I just have to find the statute quickly and read it, that's all. More on donations?
No, just that I did just send that website to all of you. If you would look at the donation part, we could talk about it at a future time.
Okay. I have just an item for possible budget requests for land acquisition funding in fiscal 2023, but I think we're a little early to be dealing with that because, town meetings in April, and usually that stuff happens in February. So I'm happy to talk about it, but I don't think that there's any real timing urgency right now.
I'm sorry, this is maybe going back to a previous conversation. We should hear from the Attorney General before any time that on the ADU issue, before any time when we would be required to restart the process, right? Because that takes a long time.
I suspect that it's pretty rare for that notice provision to flesh out somebody who's truly aggrieved by the process. And let me just take a quick look.
It's just if apply until, mid-April, it'll be too late for us to do anything. Or even
Is it
mid-February.
21 days, Harry?
Yeah, I just don't know when notice was posted. And I was just going to go back and look at the date of the Attorney General's letter to just try and get a sense. But hang on.
Her letter was
Just looking.
October 25th, Harry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
I just haven't seen the notice myself because, just because. Um, So it's entirely possible that is already in progress and will be resolved shortly.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Uh,
If you hear anything, will you keep me posted?
Yep.
I'm like out of the loop.
Harry, did
Yeah.
we, I know we're in the midst of trying to reconcile 2022 and prior, but sometime we're going to open the FY23 budgetary process. And included, it reminds me that we were going to put in a request for administrative support.
Yep.
I don't know if we settled on a number or not, but
We didn't, and I'm interested in thoughts on how we would go about determining what that number should be. I mean,
Who would we be asking that for that support?
I think it would be a request to have that included in the town's general operating budget. So probably it's a January, February request. I don't know how much, for example, the appeals board pays for staffing support. I don't know if we might need more work than that. Because, let's talk a little bit about the scope of what we would need. Someone to take minutes, post agendas, somebody to, perhaps keep the housing website up to date. Maybe pursue grant applications, although that's in the assistant town administrators and town administrators job description. So I guess how much we would ask for, it depends a little bit on the scope of what we're looking for.
I can give you just as a frame of reference that
Yep.
CPC, it's approximately 25,000 a year that we actually spend. Now it's funded through a portion of CPA funds.
Mm-hmm.
That's about what we spend.
Yeah, and we can find out what the budget is for the appeals board and the planning board and so forth. Because those will be line items in the budget. So I can find those things out. The question is, what do we want in terms of scope of services from this person? Because if we're just talking about minutes and agendas, whatever the appeals board spends is probably what we need. If we're talking about something more extensive than that, maybe we need more money and somebody with a different skill set.
It's a little bit hard to know right now, isn't it?
Yep. And that's why this is sort of a continuing discussion. We're not ready to make a decision right now, but
Yeah.
I should probably just look at what the town pays for services for other boards, at least to get an idea of the order of magnitude we're talking about.
Do other boards pay for those sort of things?
Yeah. I mean, the select board, Rebecca prepares the minutes and puts the packets together and does the posting and everything. And that's included in her salary. I know the appeals board pays somebody to do, minutes and decisions and all that stuff. I don't know who provides staffing services to the Conservation Commission or the Board of Health for that matter.
In the run-up to our meeting last week with the select board, I had a conversation with a select board member who apparently had their undies in a bundle about the fact that the Lawrence Road Task Force was not taking their own minutes and that Rebecca's time was being used for that. And this person felt as though typically our committees and boards and whatever, somebody from the committee or board would be the person that should be doing it. And so I didn't know whether we were somehow an outlier that, you know, we were looking for this.
Well, you know, with respect to 95 Lawrence Road, that's an RFP the town issued. And that's the town's process, and it's not unreasonable. You know, they had to devote the ATA's time and energy to that process. Yeah, I don't think that that's at all out of line. And the thought that it's appropriate to push every burden on amateurs seems to me to be a little bit unfair sometimes.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I typically, however long these meetings are, I typically spend half again as long doing minutes drafts.
Right,
Yes.
and present company accepted, you do a great job, Harry, but you get what you pay for often.
Well, that's the trouble. And I've seen minutes produced by
Yeah,
other
exactly
committees
right.
just
And-
make me
and some-
shudder.
Right, and some of our deliberations are of significant impact on the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also dividing your attention to where you really have to focus on that instead of being able to just, you know, take in the conversation. And so I don't think it's unreasonable. And, you know, when I've been on boards outside of the town, certainly we've had somebody else take the minutes. So,
Yeah, I mean, the school committees all have somebody taking the minutes other than committee members. You know, it's kind of absurd to run a $20 million a year business and, you know, funding the staffing through collecting, you know, on auto deposits. So I don't think it's out of line. And, you know, it's one thing for a committee that meets twice a year and doesn't have anything really to do its own minutes, but it's, you know, this is pretty complex, and the more I get into it, the more complex it gets. Okay, so at any rate, I'll at least try, and I've got a couple other people I can ask about what other towns do. I've had conversations with somebody on the Brewster Housing Trust, and one of my former partners is on the Orleans Housing Trust. And so I can ask them, you know, what they spend, how they handle those things. I was looking on the Brewster Housing Trust website, and, you know, they have meeting packets that are like the Board of Selectmen's meeting packets in Wellfleet, you know, 40, 50 pages of documents.
Hey,
Yeah, you know, maps and, you know, all kinds of stuff. You know, photographs with pictures, circles and arrows on the back, just not to date myself. Okay. Okay, still no Shelley sightings here. Policy request, if we've exhausted this, the policy request for short-term rental tax. And where is that? That's that downloads. I've got a number of you were on the how to fund community housing CDC presentation just recently, and they had Brewster's policy. I was unable to find it on Brewster's website, but I can pop it up here to show it to you. Here it is. You know, I assume you can all see that.
Yes.
You know, there's a specific 50% of short-term rental revenues to the Affordable Housing Trust, but that's the, you know, that's Brewster's policy language. And, you know, that's perhaps a guide, numbers accepted for something that would work for Wellfleet.
Harry, didn't the select board, did they ask us or you to come back with a policy recommendation?
They did ask me to come back with some language.
Mhm.
I think that they were not gonna take it up again until they had sorted out the finances.
Mhm.
So I didn't anticipate they were gonna do something until, perhaps December at the earliest.
Mhm.
But, this was language I found that looked like it made sense to me. I adjust the numbers a bit, but, consistent with our request. But that's what I would propose to them as language, something that reads along these lines.
Mhm.
Now, the part at the end about capital funds and stabilization funds, Wellfleet already has a policy that covers that. So it's really, the only part I'm really interested in is, like up to here. But I'd go back to them with language like that and see what they do with it. Ultimately, they get to write the language because it's their policy, but I would suggest something like that. And I wanted to run that by you guys before I did that.
I like the phrase committed to establishing a permanent funding mechanism.
Yeah. And that was part of our pitch to the select board.
Right.
So can I ask a clarifying question, Harry?
Sure.
When we approached the select board with this, there was that discussion with regard to the policy and policies.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that Charlie was going to disseminate something to the various committees for them to respond to, so that we could then pass the hurdle of that requirement. Is that subject to their figuring out the accounting?
That
first,
should
I-
have,
then subject to doing
I
that?
think so.
No,
Well-
I didn't think so either. So has anything gone out?
No, because I didn't get anything and I would have.
I'll follow up tomorrow and make sure that that happens, because we've also sent stuff out from a different policy through the policy on policies. And it didn't go out for comment. So we didn't get comment back. So we had to extend it, and then it did go out. So let me
Yep.
follow up tomorrow. I'll write that down right now. I just
Okay.
assume once we do things, everything
When
happens the way it's supposed to.
When you do that, Mike, you might also mention that this board hasn't received anything related to policies. So perhaps we've fallen off the mailing list for
Well,
policy review.
I think the other policy stuff was more geared towards, I can't remember what it was, but I don't think it was necessarily in the purview of it was like beach regulation stuff or something like that. I can't remember.
So it's not the case that everybody gets it and you get to say, oh, never mind.
I'm not sure,
or-
Harry. I'm not sure. I think probably everyone should get it. I don't know.
Yeah, because I know
Yeah.
when I was chair of building needs, I'd see policy language proposals that had nothing to do with building and needs assessments, and we'd just say,
No
you know,
comment. Yeah.
no, we have nothing to add to this one.
Mhm.
You might, Michael, use this language, might suggest that Charlie uses language like this that he could send out on the request.
The problem is that basically when we sent that out for comment, it was whatever was in that draft memo from Harry.
Mm-hmm.
And that was supposed to get the section that was the request was supposed to get sent out for comment, which was essentially the percentage. And I think the board only has to get comment, and then it can alter and draft whatever it wants after that initial comment. The policy on policies probably needs a rewrite.
Probably needs to go away, Mike, but that's another story.
Well, I'll talk to Helen about that.
No, I've had that conversation, thank you.
And so, yeah, I'll ask him if all committees get, it'll probably go through Rebecca.
Yeah,
Actually, so,
I will send I'll adapt this language to our request and send it to him.
Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
and I'll call Rebecca because I think she actually is the one who sends it out. So I'll just get in touch with Rebecca Eldridge tomorrow and see if it's gone out and make sure that it's going to all of the committees. Okay.
Okay.
As a little,
Yeah, go
Um,
ahead. I'm sorry.
as a little sidebar to this, at the community housing, we also learned from Laura how much money the county has. And you may have seen in the Cape Cod Times this week, the county did decide to make all the money they had gotten from CARES or COVID or ARPA, whatever, available for wastewater and other things. So I immediately sent that to the Clean Water Committee to let them know there's funding available for them.
Yes.
I was wondering actually if we should draft any type of letter to the county requesting that they consider affordable housing, because it's open for comment. I don't know how long, but even if we individually went on and commented, because they didn't even mention housing as one of
No,
the
they didn't.
areas that they were going to spend the 42 million in Barnstable County, seems to me like it's a pretty big issue in Barnstable County. And I'm getting off topic now.
Okay, well, was the select board considering doing that or not, Mike?
Yeah, I think so, but I just think during the comment period, if we don't do it before the comment period ends as a trust, maybe we can just do it as individuals.
Mike, it
Mhm.
occurs to me that Mass Works grant for the wastewater funding, which wasn't approved, is really teed up for this county request.
Mhm.
And maybe we could ask Rebecca Slick if that can go. I'm not sure what their mechanism is for funding, but
I don't think they've decided yet, and they're still taking comment on,
right. But it
How
seems like
they
it'd be a very good ask
yeah.
for that money. Are we done with the wastewater? One other thing that came out of that meeting, Harry, if you recall, this had to do with funding for workforce housing or community housing, was that places have asked for a bond authorization to acquire land and property without specific requests for a particular. On, I think it's Nantucket, they bonded twice for $5 million to give to the housing trust to buy property that they have not yet identified.
Really?
And so it was an authorization to borrow. Once they find it, it's already been passed and it's already been ready, so they can act quickly, quote unquote, quickly, to acquire funds.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so we may want to look at that at some point.
Yeah, I've got that on my list of future agenda items.
Yeah, I just mentioned.
Yep. Okay, so I will communicate with Charlie and Rebecca about that policy language. Anything else on short-term rental tax revenue?
No.
Okay. Next item is support for creation of accessory dwelling units. I guess we should have that discussion with the assumption that the bylaw will survive. And just to kind of recap, we had talked about some kind of fiscal subsidy and whether, what form it should take. My recollection or my preference would be if we're going to support it, it should be some kind of a loan with a declining balance or with a forgiveness program that corresponds to the length of the commitment that it be rented affordably. I think we have an obligation that when we spend public funds to get something for the public from it. So just writing a check to somebody and hoping that the market will make it affordable, I think is probably, well, it doesn't have much appeal to me. I'd rather say, here's X dollars, pay it back over 10 years or 15 years. And for each year that you document that your ADU is affordable, we'll forgive that year's payment, something like that. How do other
I'm
people?
in favor of that.
And I think, yeah, go ahead.
I think, that's probably a good model. It's similar to the model they use at I forget if it's Hack or what, where they do the repairs, the home repairs for people.
Mhm.
So if people flip their house, after they do the repair, they have to pay it all back. But over 15 years of depreciation, and you have to qualify for it too, but for that program, the loan goes away basically. So I think it's probably a good model. You'd have to look at the sort of costs to per unit, that you're creating of affordable housing. I don't know how much that would be, but it seems like it would be kind of an affordable thing to do if you could make a loan that was up to a certain amount. Obviously, you probably couldn't cover like the entire cost of building an ADU and then forgive it in 10 years, because construction costs are pretty high. And in 10 years, there's no perpetuity on it, right? So maybe a longer term, or depending on how much you'd lend out, it would be worthwhile, I think.
Well, certainly one question is how much money is necessary to actually incentivize somebody to do that? And it may not be funding the entire construction cost, maybe, and I don't know what it costs to build an ADU. I don't know whether anybody who's got a project in the works has a ballpark figure. Oh,
Well, I think building a building itself, just a structure without any plumbing and utilities, is upwards of around $100,000 for just a shell that's got windows and a roof and siding. And then, I mean, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
So can I ask, there's a couple of different things. First of all, like if you're not creating a new building, but
Right.
you're rehabbing an existing building, then obviously it's quite a bit less, even though it's still shockingly expensive. But there's also, like, I know there's this person in Western Mass, this company that does prefab ADUs, and their prices, I mean, I haven't been to see them and I keep intending to do that, but their prices are really quite reasonable, more like, I mean, obviously it's scaled to the size of the structure, but maybe 150,000 for soup to nuts, 600 square foot accessory unit. And that is repayable, obviously through the rent over a certain period of time. And then if you gave an assistance, I mean, would we have an objection to doing prefab?
Can we suspend on this item and come back to it since
Sure.
Shelley has joined
Oh, yeah.
us?
Absolutely.
So we'll good evening, Shelley.
Hi, and I actually have time, so if you want to finish that conversation, you don't have to end it for me.
It's been going on for months. So,
How long do you have?
and we can come back to that after we've had our conversation with you. I just thank you for joining us, first of all.
Sure.
And just to kind of provide some context, We had in July adopted a mission statement. And subsequent to that, the scoping committee for the technical assistance grant had a couple of further conversations with Shelley and with Andrea Aldana from CDP. And the suggestion was for perhaps a little bit more streamlined and succinct mission statement. And then at the last trust meeting, we reviewed that, and it was pretty clear that we perhaps would benefit from some further discussion. So this afternoon, I sent out a document with exactly what we voted in July and what I had as the September 29th summary document from the discussion with Shelley as part of the technical assistance grant. And so I wanted to see if we could get closer together on that. So, and I can share and display whatever people want to see. So how best to proceed here?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking anyone.
Okay.
Well, I think as part of that discussion, one of the criticisms was that the trust's mission statement and the housing authority's mission statement were too much the same. So the housing authority did change their mission statement to a much more succinct one, which may mean that the trust one is fine.
It is very broad. Can you put it up, Harry? So we,
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Technical assistance grant. Here is let me share my screen. Okay. My screen is quite cluttered at this point. Okay, so here is what we adopted in July. Is that what you were looking for, or were you looking for the September 29th document?
I think it's good, Harry, for you to put this one up because the other one is so succinct. We can just read it and compare it to this.
Mm-hmm. And let's.
I mean, I think when you compare the two of them, do we need to have our goals in our mission statement?
And I think that if I can summarize, I think one of the comments from September 29th was, this makes a lot of sense to everybody who's involved in housing, but somebody off the street who's curious about what we do, it's a little bit too much jargon laced, if you will. You know, we've got percentages and we've got AMI and, you know, stuff that's just not defined. So it's hard for somebody to know exactly what the reach of the committee is when they see this. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yes, and who is the trust working collaboratively with?
See, that's, yeah, I mean, everybody, anybody? You know, that's the thing. It's kind of a feel-good word that doesn't really mean much to me. You know, it's, I mean, there's a
Unless
goal.
Collaboratively with other housing, other Wellfleet housing, you know.
But isn't that sort of like the lowest common denominator? Isn't that a very low bar to, I mean, isn't that what you would expect everybody to do?
Yeah, of course. it
You don't
is.
want a goal statement that says, well, we're having a turf war with the housing authority.
We're doing what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Leave it alone.
does the phrase people at all stages of their lives include the concept of 30 to 120%? And if it does, we could get rid of the second sentence.
So before we pick this one apart, maybe we should just read the other one and see if we want to add to that or adopt that or adjust this. The other one says, the mission of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust is to create affordable homes. The trust supports opportunities to create housing and secure the necessary funding. There's no mistaking what that is.
I would argue that we do more than just create, that we do preserve and support.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't secure all the necessary funding ourselves.
No,
I think that's kind of, not accurate, actually.
But it says supports opportunities to create housing and secure the necessary funding. Doesn't say all the necessary funding.
Hmm.
You know, I don't think it's wrong as written, but I do think we should probably add the mission of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust is to create, preserve and support affordable homes or affordable housing opportunities.
Well, I think we intentionally have used the word homes as a
Right.
friendlier expression than housing. Just affordable housing occasionally has some negative connotations that homes do not have. In the same way that workforce housing sometimes has connotations that attainable housing does not.
Yeah.
Shelley, you have any wisdom to impart?
I'm just trying to think about how I might shift things around, if I were writing it, how I might shift things around. I appreciate your thoughtfulness in this. I don't know if in the mission I would necessarily, as some have brought up, I don't know if I would put the 30 to 100%, like 120%, that sort of thing in the mission statement. I don't know if I would do that because I think it could lose some people. But like some communities have done a brief mission and then they've established a few bullets of like kind of strategy and this is the way that they'll do it. And so you've done so much work around that already, but it could be a way to, in kind of the vein of this mission statement where it's really short, whether you keep it that way or not, but you could do something like, because you are doing more than create, maybe you use some of the language of either just straight to the second sentence on the old one of increase rental and ownership opportunities, or straight to expanding the year-round affordable housing supply or something like that. And or it could be a comma of by increasing rental and ownership opportunities. There's so many different ways that you could slice it, but I think that you're thinking thoughtfully about kind of shortening it, maybe a little bit less jargon.
Harry,
Go ahead, Mike.
can we go back to the other one?
I think it's, oops, wrong one. See if I can figure out where I hid it.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's that other thing you sent us.
Yeah.
Wellfleet housing groups.
Let's see.
Do you get a new computer, Harry?
Let's get, no, it's not that one. Sorry. There we
it is.
go.
There it is.
There we go.
No, I just didn't know what I had opened it in.
I have a suggestion.
Sure.
The first sentence, if we say the mission of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust is to preserve, support, and create affordable homes. Does that cover everything?
Okay, can I, oh, I see, this is in pages. So I could, we could add preserve, support, and to create.
Right? So the mission is to preserve, support, and create affordable homes. I feel like that covers everything all in one sentence.
I kind of like with the one that we voted, I kind of like the first sentence.
Okay.
I don't, the second sentence is fine until we get up to this part, which I don't like because
Why don't you delete it?
it's and
But in this context, that the second sentence is tricky because the first sentence you just said, create, preserve, and support. And then the goal is to increase rental and ownership opportunities. That's not preserve or support necessarily, that's more create. So I think it's a little bit confusing to have that
yep.
there, even though a big part of what you will be doing is I mean, unless it's, yeah, because that's not support, although it could be more create.
Well,
Just
how about if
take the
we
first sentence and just
take the
move it.
back end of that second sentence and stick it up after create and say, the mission of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust is to, I don't know, create and increase or maybe increase rental and ownership opportunities that are affordable. And then the second sentence maybe can say, working to preserve and support.
I kind of took the first two sentences and stuck them together. I don't know if you can. I know this is very cluttered.
Mhm.
Harry,
Yep.
in the interest of brevity, we could take it, replace the word homes after quality year-round homes. And
Yep.
simply put in rental and ownership opportunities that are affordable. So eliminate homes to increase. Great.
I like it.
I also took
The
out the
question
word.
is what the second sentence should say, but is that is the first sentence work?
Quality around rental. Well, I kind of like.
For one sentence.
Well, we do a lot, Mike.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, do
Right.
we need the quality in there? I mean, we're not gonna support crap.
I know, but it tells people we care. We're not. We're not.
Do you think anybody's on the housing trust that doesn't care?
Harry, what if we just took the first sentence and replace this one and replace the first sentence of the other one
Yep.
with it?
The mission of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust is to create affordable homes.
Well, why don't you just stick with the sentence that you just created? The mission of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust is to create, preserve, and support an adequate supply of quality year-round rental and ownership opportunities that are affordable. Wait, does that make sense though?
Should we just get rid of opportunities that are affordable and put homes?
An adequate supply of quality year-round rental and ownership homes that are affordable.
No, get rid of the that are affordable. Just say homes. I mean,
What-
we need affordable in there somewhere.
Yeah, you need affordable in there somewhere.
Maybe
Although it
you-
is in the,
In
it
the
is in
name of our trust, so.
Yeah.
It's kind of implied.
How about
Or just an adequate supply of quality, affordable year-round rental and ownership.
Can we
And
just write
ownership.
homes instead of rental and ownership opportunities?
What'd you say to do what?
Homes instead of rental and ownership opportunities? I mean, it kind of covers both, like either your home is a rental or you own it. I don't know if we have to,
There are two
Or
really-
year-round homes, comma, rental and ownership.
I kind of like taking out rental and ownership or not distinguishing between the two because that's like kind of a more level playing field. It's like we want to help everybody find a home, regardless of whether they're renters or looking to buy.
My main response to that is just that in our communities, there's a heavy bias towards homeownership.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And even though rental is most typically what's really needed, so
Yep.
just be
I-
simple up to not understand that.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
I'd hate to walk away from being able to communicate that we're trying to do both things, that they're address
Well-
different segments of the problem.
Are we gonna have a second sentence?
Well, we could. What should it say?
Well, I mean, if it's gonna say something about expanding whatever, that could, like, if the first sentence just said quality affordable homes, period, or then the second one could say the trust works to expand year-round rental and ownership opportunities or whatever. Like, we could spell it out a little more in the second sentence.
I agree with that.
But we
Please,
also, I think, should include the funding, which is in the other statement, because isn't that part of our job in the trust?
I think that when you're saying that you're creating, preserving and supporting housing, that it suggests that you're using money. So I don't
Yeah.
actually think
Yeah.
you need to explicitly say funding.
Okay,
When we first started looking at this way back, people liked the Brewster mission because it did say something about a welcoming community, inclusive, this and that. We liked that concept. And I think that's an important idea to put in, to put forward. That's what it's all about, making, your community inclusive.
Sustainable community.
how's this? Let's see. If we take this and let's see if I can just figure out how to do a strike through instead of deleting it.
is it next to underline? Oh, there you go, you got it. Harry, we're gonna have to start paying you.
No, I'd
maybe
I'd rather pay somebody else.
Maybe to Elaine's point, it's that the mission of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust is to create, preserve, and support an adequate supply of quality, affordable year-round homes to support an inclusive and welcoming community. And then maybe the second sentence talks about expanding rental and ownership opportunities.
Well, here, what I've got here is, basically this, which is the kind of overarching statement, and then it gets qualified to say that we're doing this to support an inclusive and welcoming community available to people at all stages of their lives. So does the second sentence sort of expand on the first one, or are we saying the
I
same
like
thing
that.
twice?
I like that much better.
I don't think we need the year round for both of them, though. It should either be in the first sentence or the second sentence.
I think I'd keep it in the first sentence.
Yeah. Well, we could take out
Yeah.
the year round out of here, like that.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Yeah, because I think the criticism of what we had before was that, it was kind of jargon laden and it meant something to people that were active in affordable housing, but would be confusing to somebody who was not. This is a little bit clearer. It's
A little more succinct.
it's it's concise, and it says exactly what our mission is. Now, we have goals and strategies too that we can talk about, but in terms of what does the trust do? I mean, I kind of like it.
I
Yeah.
like it.
Can,
Mhm.
can we move to approve this as amended?
We could certainly do that.
Can I just ask one question? When we
course.
say inclusive, do we agree that that also means diverse?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay,
I think that's a fair reading of the word.
okay.
Okay. So if we want to vote on this, perhaps we can spend a little time afterwards talking about the goals and strategies in the other document.
Okay.
I move to adopt the mission statement as amended.
Second.
Okay, we got the same mover and the same seconder. That's good. Okay, well, any more discussion? I have just changed adopt to amend.
I guess I would just like to say that I actually think this process has really helped all three groups clarify their what they're doing, which was really what we wanted to do. So I think I think that part has really happened. Now
I agree that,
we're trying to put it into words.
right, it's shined a light on, what are you guys doing? And what are you supposed to be doing?
Mhm.
Yeah, so.
Okay, in that regard, how is this mission statement distinguished from the mission statement of the Housing Authority?
The Housing Authority says to establish and carry out programs to support.
All right,
And it's just one or two sentences also, maybe just one sentence now.
Okay, well, we have a motion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, well, let's do a roll call vote. Gary,
Aye,
let's see, Jim is absent. Elaine,
Aye.
Sharon,
aye,
Kathleen,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
chair votes aye. That's 6 in favor and none opposed. So the motion's adopted. So let me save this guy. I'm gonna save as. I'm gonna give it a different name. I'm gonna change it to 11:15. Good. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of that and let's go back to this thing. If you still have time, Shelley.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we never really, the trust itself never got passed in any meaningful way, never got past the mission statement. So we never really talked as a, the whole body of trustees about strategies and goals. Let's see, can I get it all on one page, all on one screen? Yeah, I think so. There we go. I kind of like this. I'm not sure how I would change it, but it's open for discussion.
I think 2025 is too long. With item E,
Mhm.
I'd like to see us, by the end of 2023 or
Um,
whatever
you-
date makes sense, but 2025 is too long.
Yeah, you don't know how that's going to go. I mean, we might be done.
No, but it's aspirational,
Yeah.
we want to do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Do you think,
That's 3 years. How long has it taken us to get
Well,
some of
that's a
these other
different-
projects up?
That's a different issue.
well, what do you think is a reasonable time frame and I'm assuming we're talking about creating the opportunity to create 20 new homes, because
We're not, right, we're not
because you're
building.
not
the
gonna,
home.
you're not gonna pound the last nail by,
Right,
you know.
exactly. We're acquiring the land. We're not building the homes.
I think,
That should be 1 year then.
I'm for that too, but I'm trying to think about what's a realistic date we could put it.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to meet some of these goals too, you know, so,
But
you know,
Harry, don't you think we're gonna be able to acquire a piece of land within a year?
I really hope so.
but it says for at least 20 new homes. So that's by 2025, right? So to create at least 20 new homes, if you did it piece by piece, that'd be quite a lot of acquisitions.
Yes,
Right? If you only got like 2 or 3 homes on a lot, which most lots are. So if we're gonna set an attainable goal, I mean, that's 5 years to get enough land to create 20 new homes, is how I'm reading it.
But knowing what we're working on right now and feeling pretty optimistic about it, I feel like we're sandbagging.
Well, this is a goal and
I'd certainly be happy setting a new goal if, you know, in March we've met this one.
What if you take out acquire town-owned or private property and just say create at least 20 new homes by 2025? That
We're
means,
certainly not going to create the homes by then.
that means they're built by then.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that would imply, to me, that would imply including the units at Payne Hollow and Old Kings Highway. And isn't E about acquiring property?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
And,
I
you know,
think-
we could take out the word create, maybe we would use to enable the creation or something, you know, that was a little less definitive.
how about acquire property for the creation of, at least?
I like that.
Yep.
Yeah. Or
But then let's tighten the goal for the year
Oh, okay.
also.
Yeah, you know, that's still up for discussion. you
Let's
know.
just assume that everything we're going to go on a lot by lot basis, right? Let's assume that like there's nothing certain and we have to acquire homes lot by lot at probably an average of like, I mean, what are the average lots here that you can build on or create rental units? They're few and far between. I kind of feel like 2025 is a attainable goal. And if we exceed that, then that's great for the trust, that deadline, that date that our goal is set to. And if we exceed it by, 4 years, that's amazing, but I think I actually don't have a problem with the goal being set at 4 years from now to acquire enough property to build 20 homes in Wellfleet.
really, it's 3 years, Michael.
3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I just think like, I don't want to, say too much or anything, but I just,
Well, let me try and interrupt you if I may, and just
Yeah,
say
please.
that, if we are fortunate enough to acquire a parcel of 5 acres or larger, we can do another 95 Lawrence Road style project and meet this goal.
Mhm.
If we're buying 3/4 acre lots and building 3-bedroom houses on it,
We're never gonna make that goal.
2055 is too soon,
Yep.
right.
So should one of those goals be feeding into the fact that we're looking to buy larger parcels that we have success with our project to try to solicit larger parcels?
Um, I guess I don't know how specific we've got to be here.
I kind of like it the way it is, because it leaves it open either way.
Yeah, and this is a sub item to item number 1, which is to create 100 units of low, moderate income, over the next 5 years.
Okay,
But do we still want to talk about 2025 and whether that's too soon or not soon enough?
I like it.
It's
I
fine.
think it's, if we don't acquire large parcels, it's never happening.
I
And if we
agree.
do acquire large parcels, then we should be able to do better than that. So I feel like it's kind of in the gray area of maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean,
You can always attain your goals sooner than you set them.
yeah,
All right, all right, all
I
right.
prefer that than failing to meet the goal.
You got, we are, some of us are half, glasses half filled.
well, the optimist glass is half full and the pessimist glass is half empty and the engineer's glass is over designed. It's twice as big as it needs to be.
Well, I don't think there's any engineers on this committee,
There's one.
in terms of being overly optimistic.
All right,
Overly-
fine, let it
Well,
go. Bunch of sandbaggers.
um,
Like it.
Okay. And these, and they're tied to the strategies. The strategies, I think, are more specific or more, I don't know. I think the goals are more specific than the strategies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like all this, Harry.
I do too.
Mhm.
Do we want nothing about so-called community housing in here? Or it doesn't have to say, if we're saying new homes, it could, but up top it says low and moderate income.
Where?
Right here.
Strategy 5 says create workforce housing.
We should at some point have a discussion about that term because
I hate that term.
that's one thing that came out of the
Community
CDP.
housing forum.
housing forum was that there was a pretty strong sentiment that attainable housing was a less pejorative term than workforce housing.
I thought they liked community housing. Am I mistaken?
I don't know. I mean, Chatham used the term attainable housing in their RFP. And by the way, they do have a property under agreement as a result of that RFP.
Can I ask, should we make the RFP one of our specific strategies? Or is that just a part of acquire property?
I think it's part of acquire property.
Okay.
And we do have the one for Freeman Ave here.
Well, the reality is the first 4 are already in process.
Yeah.
On the workforce housing, community housing, attainable housing,
Mhm.
I feel like workforce housing, people can understand though. What the heck is attainable housing or community housing? Like, even as an affordable housing person, I'm kind of like, what does that even mean? We need housing for people that work in our community. And I feel like workforce housing kind of succinctly says that.
I made that pitch and I found myself in a distinct minority during that presentation. Mike?
Yeah, no, I think it's I think that the connotation of workforce housing implies that like people who are maybe small business owners that are earning a little bit too much or whatever are not part of what's like the idea of workforce. I think attainable housing is something that's been used for a while. And it's the same, workforce housing has no official definition either. It's just been used enough that people recognize it. And I think attainable housing basically means that housing that average people can attainably get, you know, and I have a problem with the term workforce housing. I think it's somewhat well, I don't know if it's disparaging, but it's
Well, it evokes an image of,
the company store or something.
well, you know, a dormitory for a bunch of busboys. I don't know.
Yeah.
We need that too.
I
Well,
know. I mean,
we-
to me, I think of the barracks and I think that's a great project.
Yeah, so it's specifically called out in strategy number 5. And it's, the term's not used in goal number 1, in any of the goals. I don't think, no.
Mm-mm.
Can it just be moderate income housing?
I like that
Moderate
better.
has a set percentage of AMI, right? Isn't, when you say moderate housing, it's defined by
Well,
the
then you would define it for your trust for Wellfleet. But to me, when you say low income and moderate income, like that's a direct reflection into people's incomes, and that's a reality. That's just, we have low incomes, and we have moderate incomes, middle incomes, high incomes. Like it's measurable. So if you just defined low and then moderate income for you, and we suggest that every trust define those terms because they're not defined in the statute, but the statute does say low and moderate income. So you would be using that language
Mm.
and defining it for you.
Yeah, see, our trust bylaw talks about up to 120% of AMI
Mhm.
as the scope of our authority under the bylaw.
And then typically low income is 80% and below, typically. So you say that your moderate income is 80 to 120% AMI. You could do that, and that's pretty simple. And then it's directly related to income, which is the point.
So all we'd have to do is change workforce to change strategy number 5, or get rid of strategy number 5, because it's sort of subsumed in goal number 1.
So for whatever reason, you had originally directly pulled out wanting to make sure that you're also moderate income. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you need that in your strategy or not. Maybe you do. Maybe you want to send the message to the community that you're also interested in moderate income housing.
I
We
think
could write- Sorry, go ahead.
we've codified that in our bylaws
Yeah.
up to 120%.
Yeah.
So, and that
So-
is moderate. Okay.
Harry,
Yep, go ahead, Mike.
maybe strategy 5, we could just say, create moderate income housing up to 120% AMI.
Oh, wait, no, we've already defined moderate as up to 120%.
80 to 120.
80 to 120.
Wait a minute.
We did
Does-
do that?
Does the word, I'm a little confused now about definitions. What does low income housing mean in the context of the trust?
Under 80%.
Under 80%? So where we say low, DHCD says that's low and moderate to 80%.
No, so with the examples we give is like the state's affordable housing trust
Right.
is a moderate income and they go up to 110% of AMI. So 80% is usually, it's low income is usually 80% and below. That's typical. It's HUD HUD's idea of affordable, it's the SHI. So that's typical, is 80% and below is low. But what's tricky is I think that some moderate or workforce housing programs are 60 to 120, so, or 140. So it's
Right.
insanely confusing. So you just need to define it for you and then use it. So if 80 is okay for you to be low income is 80 below, then use that. If you want to modify that, you can.
Okay, so
80 is commonly used.
so for us, in terms of the trust, when we talk to other people, low income is at 80 up to 80% of AMI, and moderate is up to 120%.
That's kind of what I thought we had done.
Okay, so we really don't need to define it again. If
I
we
agree.
defined it in our definition.
Mhm.
So if you're going to be using this document as you're working on it and solidifying it, you might want to add that like as a definition section or a note on it if you're going to like be posting this to your webpage, just so people are clear about what you mean by this.
Yeah, I kind of think if you put it on the webpage, it should say what the income levels are, because I think plenty of people would be confused. People who aren't real, just aren't connected with this, say area median income, and they kind of go, huh?
We could
Yeah,
link,
in fact, you could define it and then you could say for Wellfleet, a family of, 80% for a family of 3 or 4 is
Exactly.
number. Yeah.
we'd have
We
to
should
update
do
on a
that
yearly
because
basis.
that really hammers it home for people.
Okay. I don't know whether you can see, because I think my
We
choice of
can.
color
can
for
see it.
modification is unfortunate. But we'd stick a note like that, and perhaps that
Mhm.
clarifies what we think we're doing.
Yep.
Could we put a link that would link to what the area median income is? Or something like that, so people can click on, because oftentimes when people are looking at stuff that they may qualify for, they just don't know even what AMI means.
Right,
Agreed.
I agree.
Can I just say, ask a question, Harry?
Yes,
You just wrote the term affordable refers to income below 80%. Is that the same as low? And the other one is moderate?
Yeah, good point. It should be low and moderate.
I guess moderate also is affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What-
So
what-
Instead of
what
saying
am I-
the term
what am I saying?
affordable,
Yeah, go ahead.
it's
Low income.
it's low income refers to incomes below 80%, and moderate refers to 80 to 120.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Should we, if we're going to be doing that, just make strategy 5, create housing for low and moderate income families?
Oh, wait, isn't that everything we do?
Well, I know, but we're spelling out 5 that we're doing for moderate income
Yeah,
families.
maybe
It
we should just
seems-
get rid of 5 because we've already said we'd do it for both groups.
Yeah, that was where I started, is 5 really necessary?
Yeah,
And my sense is it's not. What happened to strategy 6?
it's the new strategy 5. Keep up.
Yeah, because you have strategy 2 and strategy 3, that's basically creating housing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, is our purview does not allow us to do things like, can we create seasonal workforce housing? We can't do that as a trust, right? That doesn't fall under this trust's.
well, we certainly haven't said we're going to do that, and the bylaw doesn't reflect that we're going to do that.
I don't think, I just feel like we can't do that as a trust, as the Affordable Housing Trust.
You can't use CPA money for that, for sure.
Yeah. Frankly,
It needs to have some affordability restrictions, so seasonal. It's an interesting question. You definitely can't use CPA funds for that, but it's an interesting question. If the
yeah,
tri-
frankly, I'd get rid of strategies 5 and 6.
Mhm.
Strategy 6
Yes.
because it's so very specific. And we address it in the goals.
Agreed.
And strategy number 5, because it basically kind of restates what the overall effort is about.
Yep.
Can I ask, what is trustee education? Is that this?
That's figuring out what we're supposed to do and how to do it, which we're in the process of doing.
I think so like a strategy would be to create like create low interest loan programs or down payment assistance programs, stuff like that.
Isn't that
That's
Housing-
what the housing authority is focusing on now,
Right, okay.
which we would have to come
That's
to you for the funding.
Right, okay. So to fund, so one of our strategies is to fund those types of programs then.
support programs generated by the housing authority?
And
I mean, it would be a
Financial
strategy to attain our goals is to fund the programs that are created by the housing authority.
So
Is that not a strategy?
starting to make my hair hurt. Um,
I'm sorry, Harry.
Here's a proposal for discussion.
Sure.
Replace strategies 5 and 6 with a completely new strategy that says provide financial support to housing authority programs, period.
I like that.
That's perfect.
love it.
That's good, but I wonder if our financial things should be together, or we think that we should bookend what our strategies are, because our first one is build financial capacity. Should the
Yeah.
second one be support?
No,
So it should be last.
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, so let's.
I
let's
wonder
do
if we
this.
don't want to put, I know that Elaine might, you might really want to specifically put the housing authority, but maybe it's more general of support
Programs.
programs that support, something around programs that support.
Yeah, I agree that it doesn't
Just
have.
in
to
case
say
there's
housing
another
authority.
entity that comes up with a program that.
Harry, you used the word support twice.
Yes,
Provide funding for housing support programs.
okay.
There you go.
And I'd get rid of strategy number 5.
Agreed,
Mhm.
Yep.
because it's already in our name.
Yeah, I mean, this was at the beginning when we were throwing everything in there, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll clean it up later, but just.
Okay.
What else would you like to do to it? No, I'm serious.
Well, I didn't know under the number 2, if we wanted any kind of language about bonding.
Well, I think that's part of financial capacity.
Yeah, and it does say 1 to 2 additional revenue streams.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I was going back down to our goals now.
yeah. I think that's enough. I think there's enough in there to.
Harry, can you go a little below 2? What's below 2?
Before we move
Nothing.
down, should
Oh, I'm sorry.
should the affordable housings be capital A
Hmm.
in our strategies?
I think capital A, Kathleen has a specific and more limited
Yeah,
definition.
I know, so that's what I'm saying. Should our strategies not be capital
No.
A?
I would say no. because that gives us a little more flexibility.
Yeah.
That
So
was
should
just,
we just spell them out then?
yeah, that was just me doing shorthand. type.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure we don't overlook it and then lock ourselves into something that we don't want.
Well, and you should spell out all this if you're gonna end up putting it on the website or so other people know what the hell AH means.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think ultimately this needs to be cleaned up a little bit before it can be adopted as, formally adopted. I would probably get rid of any acronym. I'd expand RFP and CPA and all of the other acronyms here.
Shelley, have they recently revised the HUD numbers?
What month is this? Don't they do it in the,
I thought they do it around now.
But October,
I actually don't know. But I did see, I did the acronym wrong for your housing trust there. I did.
Oh, yeah, I had noticed that.
What?
It's Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater.
Uh,
I'm sure they'd be happy to take any of
Good.
our,
Yeah, I had noticed that and decided not to say anything. We had a good point to reflect on this further. Because I don't think we're quite ready to vote on it yet. I'd certainly like to give it to you in a little cleaner form,
Mhm.
perhaps at the next meeting.
Right.
Any other, I'm gonna save this as something else. File.
Harry, go to rename, yeah.
Yeah, I almost never use pages for anything. Oh, come on. Okay, I'm gonna do what I normally do, which is year, month, day. Now I can save it.
Great.
There we go. Okay. Any other words of wisdom, Shelley, before we let you go?
I think it looks fantastic. I think you guys have done a really nice job.
Where'd my meeting go? Gosh. No, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Oh, come on.
Cancel, Harry.
There we go.
Yeah. And Shelley agreed to come to our housing authority meeting in December. So we will do the same with our piece of it. And I
And we
think
have one,
we're pretty
we have one
close.
with the partnership in December as well.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm making my rounds.
Yeah, we really appreciate this, Shelley, because
yeah.
I know Elaine, Gary, and I have been part of a long discussion, but the other trustees have really just been getting it kind of thrown at them in a very condensed version without any of the thought that went into it. So this is wonderful, and I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. I think that doing this groundwork, it might seem a little bit tedious, but I think it's going to help a lot down the road.
Well, we're almost 1 year into a process of figuring out what we do and what we're supposed to do, because we were all appointed in mid-December of last year.
Wow.
So here we are.
I think you're doing great.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's made a huge difference to the town to have this trust. It
Oh.
really has. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And will.
Yes. Yes. As you raise $1 million a year.
Yes.
That would
Or
be
more.
good. Okay, so we can let you go if you'd.
Okay.
Thank you so
See you
much.
all.
Thank you very
Bye,
much.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, so we can go back now to support for creation of ADUs, because I kind of cut you all off in mid-stride there. If you'd like to revisit that.
Yeah, I jotted down a couple numbers here and I was wondering if Elaine knows kind of what the average rental subsidy is that the town offers right now through I don't know what that's through.
Well, the rental subsidy is, paying partial rent.
Right.
So it's,
$500, Elaine?
yeah, $500 a month.
Okay, so I just did a little bit of math, and if you gave a $60,000 forgivable loan over 15 years, that would amount to $500 a month. That would create an affordable house ADU for 15 years. And then if you did it 120,000 over 30 years, that would be the same thing, $500 a month, and that would be an affordable home for 30 years. I don't know if that's, so I just kind of did the calculations there. It's about $4,000 a year. And then you could do something where even if it wasn't all forgivable, maybe the interest was forgivable or something like that. Over a certain amount of time. I don't know, but I just kind of wanted to put numbers on what it would actually cost to do this. And that's what it is. I mean, $60,000 would be $500 a month for 15 years.
Well,
Yeah, I think that's a bargain. If we could get a unit up and running.
I guess right now with the buy-down program, we're getting a permanent restriction for, $200,000.
Mhm.
And, if we got a 15-year restriction for $15,000 or $20,000, I think that's a comparable bargain. The mechanics of how you administer it, I think we've got a long way to go. But if it costs, say, $200,000 to build an ADU from scratch, and you gave somebody 10% of that in exchange for as an inducement to make it affordable for some period of time, that sounds like it might be enough of an inducement to encourage production of housing, which I think is what we're trying to do here.
Yes.
Is we're trying to figure out how to, what inducement will get a property owner motivated to do this. And what we expect in return is, to be able to, have it documented that in fact it is rented affordably.
Can I just, one cautionary note, Harry, is that
Yep.
the AADU program really was hindered by its inability to be administered or policed. So any program that we set up that says they have to document annually that it's affordably rented, we really have to make provision as to how we're going to do that.
Mhm.
Because it became very frustrating for all involved.
I would second that. When Tim King left the assistant town administrator position to go to Westport, I didn't know that he was administering this program, and it
Yeah.
came to be September, and I started getting calls about, what about my AADU approval for my tax abatement? I had to go find the files and figure it out, and and it wasn't like I had nothing else to do.
You were talking about administrative expenses, but is this an administrative expense of the trust to do that? We now contract with CDP through Ann Robinson to do it, and she does a good job, but it does cost, thousands a year.
Have a sense of what it costs, how many she's monitoring at what
Is
cost?
she administering ADUs?
No,
She administers the
Yeah.
down payment assistance, which is a very
Right.
similar program.
Oh, okay.
Um,
If it
I don't
costs,
think that's
go
similar.
ahead, Sharon, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I don't think that the down payment assistance is that similar a program because, there's only 7 of them or something like that. And the ADUs, there were quite a few more. And I think the reason we lost so many partly was because there wasn't the oversight, but also there wasn't, apart from the tax abatement, there wasn't a financial incentive. So
Right.
we know someone who did get a financial incentive from HUD who, if she
Yes.
stopped renting, then she would have to pay back her loan. And HUD was administering that.
Well, I'm certainly okay with the idea that a fraction of the loan is forgiven every year that you're in compliance. The question of how you administer it is, as Gary says, is a real question. I mean, typically, you want to see a lease that meets affordable requirements, so you know that the unit's being rented for an affordable rent, and you want to see some evidence that the tenant is eligible, that it's somebody who needs affordable housing as opposed to somebody who just doesn't want to spend much on housing. So there's some process you go through to get, income and asset statements from tenants. And I'm guessing that for each AADU, probably, was something like 4 or 5 hours of time for each one. And
Each year?
each year. Because
That's a
you
lot.
had to make sure that the lease was still in place. You had to make sure that you had to check each year. And in exchange for that, you would get, that year's loan repayment obligation waived. So yeah, there's a cost to doing this beyond the actual amount of the loan.
I think once you define what the program is, that we should get an estimate of the cost to administer it and include that in the cost of the program.
Makes sense.
So that, because to burden the town, because first of all, we have high turnover and we have bad handoff. And so each person almost has to recreate it themselves. And it's really become problematic. And it's not just the housing stuff, it's lots of programs.
Yes.
So if we can institutionalize the process, we will eliminate some of that.
Totally agree.
Harry,
Yes, Mike.
is that something that, the town could have the trust do to contract through someplace like the CDP to do the ADU, do something like that, like with a program like this? I just thinking about the administering of the ADUs as they are and the staff situation in town right now. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think I would be reluctant to add the burden of administering this to either the TA or the ATA, or just because they really don't have enough time to do the things they're supposed to do.
Mhm.
So we would probably have to fund hiring someone or contracting with somebody to do this. But that's fine. That's part of the cost of doing business, just as long as we're not being Pollyanna about what it costs to administer it.
Harry, this goes to your idea of what is the justification for a budget request,
Yep.
so that the administration of this program could be part of that.
Mm-hmm.
When
that
we-
function.
When we started the rental assistance program, you know, we did it as a pilot program for a year. And we contracted with the CDP to help.
Well, actually, Paul Pilcher,
No, before Paul.
before
Well,
Paul.
Way back in the beginning, when we first started it, we got a CPA grant and we piloted it. And we had someone from the CDP, I can't remember her name right now, but really draft the way it was going to be done and handled it for a while. And, you know, the CDP and HAC just got 1.5 million to support an ADU kind of resource center. So we may be able to use some of their funding to help, or to use whatever they're going to do as part of this project.
Like the way you're thinking.
Well, I'm also thinking that the ADU bylaw has to be
Right,
administered and enforced as well.
right.
And I'm wondering if we can kind of tie it all into a
Oh.
similar request.
Mm,
That's market rate.
yeah, the ADU bylaw is really the building inspector's
It's a building inspector.
bailiwick. This is the administration of the loan program.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd want to subsidize the building inspector
No.
to do this, because I mean, you know, that's part of the job.
Mhm.
You know, it's a building permit, whether it's a building permit for an ADU or an outdoor shower or a new house, it's still a
Yeah,
building
but
permit.
There's,
most building permits don't need to be managed every year.
Right. But that would be, that part of it, we could
that's what I was talking about.
we could undertake. I thought you were talking about the supporting the decision to actually issue the building permit and issuing
No.
it to
No,
the CO.
just making sure that people are actually complying with it and not turning them into Airbnbs.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, if we have a program like we're, you know, along the lines of what we're talking about to provide financial support for some of them, I suppose we could expand the scope of administering that to monitoring all of them. You know, I don't think that there are going to be hundreds of these unless something remarkable happens.
Unless Sharon is successful.
Yeah.
What happens if somebody is renting it as an Airbnb?
They would have to decommission it and basically return it to a,
Zoning violation.
it would be a
Right,
zoning
there are fines
violation.
in the
There's
bylaw.
fine- There's
Yeah.
fines per day, and essentially, if you didn't utilize it the way it's spelled out in the bylaw, you would have to return it to an approved use of that building. So whatever that building is, has
Yeah.
approved uses in zoning outside of that, so.
Who is drafting this program?
Well, we haven't got that far yet. I think what we were looking for right now was sort of a conceptual outline of what the program's going to do.
Oh, okay. All I'm saying is, I apologize, is that once we define what it is, we can go to both CDP and homeless prevention and ask for a quote to administer the program, which we've done in the past, and you know their fees are reasonable.
Mhm.
So Harry, what you originally said as far as incentivizing, what was the
Yeah.
number that you put out? Like,
Well, I
20,000?
just by way of example, you know, 15,000 forgivable over 15 years, or 20,000 forgivable over 10, some number divisible by 20. You know, over 10 years or 20 years. I don't know.
I don't know how far 15,000 will go.
No.
I just think maybe we could couple something with additional loan money, like a percentage is forgiven rather than the whole thing. And it
Well, yeah, that's what I was talking about was, you know, if you do just the numbers don't make sense, but if you did $15,000 over 15 years, every year, $1,000 of the principal and that year's interest payment would be forgiven. So after 15 years, the loan would disappear, and it would be no cost to the property owner as long as they met the obligation to rent it affordably.
There is a program already in place for a loan for remodeling.
Yep.
And rather than create this at a full cost, I mean, maybe we could borrow theirs
Mm-hmm.
and use that as our template. And I
Yep.
honestly don't know how the current program works. Is it forgivable each year or forgivable at the end or?
Forgivable each year. It's
Each year.
$35,000 to $40,000.
Yeah, we could talk to the woman who's administering that program, whose name escapes me right now, and ask her to send us that document, if that would help.
Mm-hmm. But I guess kind of where I wanted to get tonight to was, does this conceptually make sense to us, subject to agreeing on, what numbers might be? I mean, is this the kind of structure that we want to talk about, or is there some other way to support, to provide financial support that we should be thinking about?
I think this idea makes sense. I think it's sort of tried and true. It's happened before.
Yep, I would agree.
How much money did you say, Mike? A total amount?
Well, I just did some numbers. So if you did a $60,000 loan and it was repayable over 15 years, that would be about $500 a month during that time. If you were considering it similar to like a rent
Right.
subsidy or something like that, it would be similar to that. But then I was kind of thinking like if these things are pretty expensive to build, access to loan money for somebody who's a property owner, that's not too expensive might be just as important. So if you were to loan whatever the loan is and have 50% of it be forgivable and potentially have a larger loan amount, that would be probably incentivizing too. But honestly, until we have enough funds to administer something like that. But if there were some interest coming in from a loan that was going out to these, so you're granting a loan out, there's some interest coming in that would presumably administer the program as well. So let's say I wanted to build an ADU and I needed to borrow 100,000 or something like that, and a certain percentage of it was forgivable and a certain percentage I paid an interest rate on, that would potentially administer the cost of doing the program as well. I think
You're saying we would provide the loan?
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there as a concept.
I think I'd rather just finance the forgivable portion of it.
Yeah.
And, if you're building an ADU on property that's got a principal residence already, presumably there's some ability to get a home equity loan or refinance your
That's how
first
most of them are.
mortgage.
Right.
And,
across the-
we just want to provide the icing on the cake that says, okay, that makes a difference. I want to do this.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
And there are a lot more, my understanding is, most people do the home equity loan, but that banks are becoming more and more willing to factor in the income from the ADU as part of, what makes it possible to build, and therefore they're more willing to provide a loan, whereas in the past they weren't. But a lot of those programs are changing. So I think it could be a partnership kind of thing.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking of people who don't actually have much equity and needed to maybe support their mortgage or something.
But we don't have any income qualification as part of this program. I mean, if you were a multimillionaire,
Right.
House, if you were at the Blash House and wanted to create an ADU, you could apply for the same loan.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
I think
Being
that's more likely to be the reality than not.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, but I think what I'm willing to pay for is is the affordability
Right,
restriction.
yes, I think
Right.
that's the, right, that's our incentive.
Okay, it's after 9 o'clock.
Yeah, let's stop.
Gary, Elaine, and I have a meeting in less than 13 hours. And we have a couple of things still to do that perhaps we can do quickly. One of them is a next meeting date. And just I have in the way of agenda items that we still need to work on at future meetings are, the appropriation request for town meeting, whether we need to do an amendment to the housing trust bylaw, the CPA bonding question, monitoring the trust balances, further discussion on the ADU support, further discussion and possible action on the strategies and goals. I'm going to write that one down.
Barry, what about RFP? Are we going forward with the RFP?
Yeah,
And
I
can
have
we-
to catch up with Becky because she had suggested a date when I was away and I haven't been able to get back together with
Right,
her.
I'm just saying that, could we put that on the
Yeah.
agenda?
FP status.
And at some point, we could get an update on wherever we are on our other thing.
Or other
Another
thing. Which other, which, everyone's,
There's not much of an update yet.
no,
Okay, I'm just saying at some point, when there is,
The wheels of municipality churn very slowly, Gary.
how about December 13th? That's a Monday. Assuming, does that make sense to people?
It's fine.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
pretty far away. A month away? Think
That's
we
a
have
month
enough-
away. I mean, I'd be willing to call a meeting earlier if there was something urgent, but I think these things are all,
Not time sensitive?
they
Okay,
would work in that time frame. I think.
okay. So yes, that's what we're saying.
Yeah. Is that okay?
At 7 o'clock again?
Yeah. Do you want to do minutes or do you want to just kick that can down the street?
Kick it.
Down the street.
I think we can do them pretty quickly if you want, but
Okay,
whatever you want.
okay, I'll do them. Let me find my,
Can I just move all minutes?
if
I
they're in
have
good
one
enough.
correction
shape.
on each minute.
Okay, let me get back to minutes. Okay, go ahead, Kathleen. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do executive first. Oh,
Okay.
can we do executive in this?
No.
No, let's
No, we
get that.
Okay,
Let's do
so
the other one.
November 4th, open meeting. Okay.
So I'm not sure whether it was supposed to be me, but whoever made the motion is a Ms. Nolan. And so I'm thinking,
I'm sorry, that's my,
is
that's
that like
you.
your code name for one of us?
no, I'm trying to think of who Nolan I know. I don't know who it
I
is.
think it's the name for Jim Hood.
Okay, okay. Okay. Okay, I've fixed that.
That's
If,
it.
if Kathleen, if you want to email me with corrections to the other two, I can get them corrected so we can approve them in an open meeting without actually talking about them.
Perfect.
Good. I move the minutes.
Okay, is there a second?
Good.
Okay, that's Sharon. So all those in favor of approving the minutes of November 4th open session as amended, a roll call vote, and we'll do, where's my list? Gary,
Aye.
Elaine,
Aye.
Sharon,
I,
Kathleen,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
chair votes aye. That's 6 in favor, none opposed. How about a motion to adjourn?
So
Motion to
moved.
adjourn?
Second,
Okay. Roll call, Gary,
Aye.
Elaine,
aye.
Sharon,
I.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Mike, chair votes aye. It is 9:14 PM. We are adjourned. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Okay.
See some of you soon.
We did good, I think.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Night
guys.
all.
good night.
Okay. Bye.